This box is so powerful it turns everything you know about productivity upside down. It is the most powerful tool any artist can use to get anything done they set their mind to, and it is by far the most important tool I have in my toolbox. But in order to understand how powerful it is, let's take a look at how Victor Hugo used a similar strategy to write history. In the 19th century, Victor Hugo is writing the famous novel The Hunchback of Notre Dame. He has a contract with the publisher that comes with a deadline. Now in the 21st century, these things are not that important. If you miss your deadline, you get a second chance. You can go to another social media platform, you can go to another publisher, it's all good. But in that time, in the 19th century, you don't get second chances. This is your one shot. If you lose your publisher, you lose your reputation and your career is over. Now as the deadline is coming closer, Victor Hugo is not really writing anything at all. As a matter of fact, he is just going out, meeting people, drinking, and having a good time. A couple of weeks before the deadline, Victor becomes deeply ashamed of himself because he hasn't written a goddamn thing yet. He has to go to the publisher. He's nervous. He's shaking, deeply ashamed, stumbling to the publisher. He confesses. The publisher is furious, goes nuts. For some reason, we don't know how Victor did it, but for some reason, he convinces the publisher to give him more time. He gets another 2 months. This is it. This is all or nothing. Victor realizes the next couple of weeks will become the most important weeks of his life. Now, 2 months is still nothing. For most people, they can't write a book in 2 months, let alone write a bestseller that will change the course of history in 2 months' time. And so how does Victor do it? He knows he can't trust himself. He knows he's going to screw it up, that he is going to go out and waste his time. And in his fear, he comes up with the following solution. He asks his assistant to go while he is asleep inside of his room, take all of his clothes, go outside, lock him up inside of his own room, and then she is allowed to open the door if he slides 6 fully written pages underneath the door. And lo and behold, the strategy works. He writes every single day 6 pages. The book is finished 1 week before deadline, and as they say, the rest is history. Now, this strategy of locking yourself up in your room is not something we only see with Victor Hugo. We see this with all artists. Maya Angelou would go and rent out hotel rooms, ask the staff to take off all of the things inside of the room so that nothing would distract her as she was writing the books. Picasso would work during the night so that nothing could distract him. Mahler would go in a cabin in the mountains so that nobody could distract him. I'm telling you, this secret, this little box that I'm going to show you, is the secret that all artists were using in various forms. And so what are all of these artists doing? They are making their lives so boring that they cannot but do the work. That's what this box will do for you. It will make sure that you cannot but do the work and achieve the things that you set your mind to. Now, why are all these artists doing that? What's the thing about boredom that results in creativity? Well, there's one study that actually reveals something about boredom. So in this study, they have 2 groups and they ask both groups to come up with creative ways to use 2 cups that they were given. And to the first group, they just give a particular time frame in which they have to do this task, and to the second group they say to the people that they have to do a boring thing, namely copying numbers from one sheet to another sheet while they are trying to come up with ways to use the cups. And lo and behold, the second group comes up with way more creative ways to use the cups than the first group. Now the researchers thought about it and explained this phenomenon through boredom. They say that the second situation, the people were bored of this numbing task, and because of that boredom, they created more creative ways to come up to creative ways to use the cups. Now, I mean, is that true? Is that the actual reason that they came up with more ways? It's very hard to say. These are types of researches where it's perhaps too difficult to really know what's going on, but I do believe there's something true about boring tasks. For some reason, locking yourself up in your room will make it more likely that you finish the book that you started in the first place. And so let's think about this. What is boredom? Well, boredom is the most boring state, the worst state that you can be in. And so what happens if you allow yourself to be bored? Well, if you allow yourself to be bored, then suddenly the project that you're working on becomes quite a lot of fun. If you can choose, if your brain can choose between boredom or writing your novel, suddenly writing your novel seems like a lot of fun. If your brain, however, can choose between watching YouTube videos or painting, suddenly watching YouTube videos seems like a lot of fun. And so the contrast of your project, your dream, what you want to work on with boredom is just very powerful. And so then the question becomes, well, what is preventing you from being bored, from achieving your dreams, from getting things done, from riding the Hunchback of Notre Dame? Well, it's simply your addictions, the thing that you grab towards when you are bored. Alcohol consumption, cigarettes, Netflix, porn, YouTube, your phone usage. Some people are eating their dreams away by stuffing themselves with all sorts of fast food crap. The reality is that it's simply not possible to love what you are doing if you allow yourself to also play video games, drink alcohol, and masturbate at the same time. And if you don't love what you're doing, you are not going to put in the time that is necessary to achieve the things that you want to achieve. The reality is that your phone is designed to be the most addictive thing in the world. It is a slot machine better than what they have in Vegas. And so is it possible for your project to be as fun as your phone? No. The reality is that writing your novel simply isn't as enjoyable as watching YouTube. It's not as enjoyable as playing video games. And so the question then becomes, how can we make sure that we don't have those addictions, or at least don't have access to our addictions, don't have access to the things that distract us from achieving those dreams? And that is where the box in the beginning of this video comes in. This little box here, it's called the kitchen safe. Probably designed for people who have difficulties with cookies. I use it for different things. This box is your savior. This box is everything you need to achieve anything you set your mind to. It's probably the most important purchase I've made under $50 in my entire life by a very large margin. So let's show you how this whole thing works. You open the box, you put anything inside of the box, then you close it. And then you are going to set the timer. So we can set a timer. It goes from minutes to hours to days. So let's set it at 1 minute. Then once you set the time, you press this button. Very easy to press. 4, 3, 2, 1. It gives a little timer. And then it locks itself. And now it is locked. You see these pins? These pins are, the locking mechanism. And so now you cannot open it anymore. We can read how long it still is. So now it's still 42 seconds until you will get your cell phone, or anything for that matter, back. There's a link in the description towards this box. I'm not sponsored by this company. I don't actually care about what box you buy. Now, besides this box, there's one more thing that is standing in our way of achieving those dreams. Because the thing is, the reality is that making that novel is actually not the hard part. Painting is not the hard part. Working out is not the hard part. The hard part is starting to write a novel in the first place. For some reason, when we start, everything else happens automatically. But the starting is the hard part. So that's why I made a list of quick start execution hacks with which you can trick your brain into starting any task that you want to start. Meaning, you'll never feel like you've wasted your day on your phone at the end of the day ever again. A link to this free guide can be found in the description. That said, get the hell out of here.